Hello and welcome to my design thinking journal, coming in hot after an intensive design thinking workshop for over a week, 10 days. Let me share my thoughts with you, especially you, future Harsh, as a primer, a quick update uh, into the background of design thinking. Let's get started. So, what is design thinking? I mean, the more I read about it, the more confused I got. There are so many definitions. But in essence, I like to think of design thinking as a framework for problem solving. Uh, and it's much more robust than that. But to put it succinctly, it is a framework and it does solve problems. Uh, One thing to remember after all of this is that design thinking is iterative, and it should not be done in a single step. It's not a single iteration going from empathy to definition to testing and implementation. It's just you need to go back and forth to get the best results out. If you are watching this for best results going forth, I'd like to uh, ask the audience to think of a problem, think of a problem area, and try to follow along these steps to get the best results out of this. Uh, yes. One more thing about design thinking is that it doesn't just make choices, it doesn't just cut down on options, it generates options. It is a way to bring out new solutions rather than converging. It diverges and then converges. In other words, it flares and then focuses again and again. There is a problem space and a solution space. We follow this in stages. Uh, for new people, it is an irresistible urge, so as to say, especially it was for me, uh, directly jumping into the solution space, thinking like a consultant, thinking like taking a problem like an examination and trying to just jump to solutions, but that is not the best approach in design thinking. One needs to expand their choices, one needs to think big and include more options, include more perspectives, generate more ideas, and then start moving forward to get the best out of design thinking. Uh, so as you can see, there is a variation in the number of steps involved and number of things to be done in a design thinking process. Coming to that, I think there are various ways of defining the steps within design thinking, but in broad categories, there is empathy, there is framing, there is ideation, and then there is prototyping and testing. I personally have resonated with the Stanford D School steps of 5 steps of empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. I would like to walk in this presentation. I'd like to walk you through, remind you of these steps and what each of these steps involve. Mm, in any case, in each of these definitions, the methods and tools kind of remain the same. There's a great overlap. You start by empathizing, you start by reaching out to stakeholders, you map your context, you lay the groundwork, you try to study the landscape, then you start moving forward, then you try to think big, think wrong, and consider many activities, then you filter ideas, and then eventually you start prototyping and ideating and then implementing, moving forward. So the first stage, the universally recognized stage in design thinking, and personally, one of the most crucial steps in design thinking would be to gain empathy, to empathize with the problem, with the user, with the problem statement, with the problem area. How do you do that? You start by observing, like really observing, observing as if you were a child. One example is that when an adult is given a new material or a substance, they would look at it and be done with it. But when a child is given something new, a child will lick it, child will touch it, child will try to kick it, break it, throw it. And that's the kind of mentality one should have while empathizing with something within design thinking. You need to engage with it. You need to immerse yourself into it, whatever it is, be it your problem statement or be it a problem area. Moving on. Then after you've empathized with it, you would try to define the problem. And it's very necessary to be very accurate in this. Without defining something, you cannot solve it. You cannot have a very broad definition, as your solution would be very broad and it would achieve nothing. While defining, you need to try to preserve the emotion of the uh, user whose problem you are trying to solve. You need to maintain semantic accuracy. Whatever words you use should be very precise. You need to try to use strong language, make bold statements about the problem, so that you capture the essence beautifully. You need to provide deep insights into the problem, so that the solution can be much more on point. Keep in mind that at the definition stage, we are trying to focus ourselves. In the previous stage, we went broad. So here we are trying to focus ourselves. But that doesn't mean you eliminate all the possibilities. So you need to keep this open to more possibilities, open to solutions in different ways. You cannot define the need for a vehicle as needing faster horses. You need to define it as a way to go somewhere faster, and then the solution might be open to cars and not just fast horses. The next stage would be to ideate. You need to really widen your scope again. In this stage, you need to bring in values, bring in ideas, bring in methods from various uh, fields that you know. Try to cross combine. Whenever an idea pops up by yourself, from a team, from elsewhere, you should try to hold your judgment back, because no idea is bad. You need to be open to being outlandish. And that is, again, we are flaring. And so you need to capture as much as you can in this, while being smart. Prototyping. At this stage, once you have a few ideas, you need to eventually try to test them. But in order to do that, you need to prototype it. And it is not sensible to put in all your resources into prototyping. So it should be rough and it should be fast. The main purpose of prototyping is to convey the vision of the solution that you have in your head. The goal of this is to gain empathy for the solution that you have, so that any person, may be it the user or a third party trying to solve this, uh, empathizes with the point of view, the perspective that you've thought. It should inspire other solutions from others. It should inspire others to come up with better ways of solving the same problem. Uh, and the next thing is testing. You need to be proud to be wrong. During the seminar, I've learned that it's necessary to be wrong to eventually come out with the best product. If you're not wrong, you're not learning. You The importance of trying to be wrong is understated here. You need to be hungry for feedback. You need to go out of your way and seek people and ask them for the feedback on your prototype. You need to have a deep insight after you've tested this. And the goal of testing is to get you back to the ideation phase or the prototyping phase with much more insights, so that you can better your product by magnitudes of difference. There are many methods in design thinking. DT stands for design thinking. I would like to go over briefly a few of them, and mention a few of them, but this is an inexhaustive list and you should be able to come up with many more just by understanding a few of these. Interviewing for empathy, I guess. Again, interviewing your uh, user uh, with a very deep sense of empathy needs to be done in a very particular way, so that their emotions eventually bubble out and you have a very deep, insightful conversation which builds up, so that you can really get into the thick of it. Uh, you should try to consider the extreme users of the solution, because building for them will give you much more keener insights into the whole problem, into the whole solution that you are building. Most conventional approaches tend to focus on the mean, but but to gain a sense of understanding of the problem, you need to go wider. You need to attack the extreme users and try to understand them, which would give you brilliant ideas in the long term. Analogous empathy. The classic example is standing in line at a bank or at an office. is very different from standing in line for, let's say, popcorn or food, or something fun. Uh, Storytelling, when you tell stories and when you expect others to tell stories, the insights, the details tend to get deeper and more magnified, and key insights start popping out. And which is why storytelling is an important method in design thinking. Saturate and regrouping, you may have a number of viewpoints, perspective, ideas, what you can, and they must have come from different perspectives. But when you put them all together and then try to separate them again, what happens is you end up refocusing them, regrouping them in different ways. So things which may have come from different places may mix and merge, and that gives you perspectives which may not have been fleshed out very well, and you can try to expand on them to gain many more ideas. Empathy mapping, again, looking at different things and trying to figure out what you feel about them. Journey mapping, about the problem, about the user, what it went through, will try to, is again very helpful. 2 by 2 matrix. I've known this concept as the BCG matrix, wherein you try to put two dimensions of anything onto a two-dimensional graph, and then plot each of your ideas, each of your products, each of your solutions onto that. And grouping them in such a way will give you areas, hotspots, or scarcity plots where you can focus on. Again, it's possible to do this in a 2 by 3 or a 4 by 4 way, but 2 by 2 is the fastest and the easiest way to do this. Powers of 10, you can keep going bigger and bigger. You can put creative constraints on your problem or on your solution, and you can gain a lot of insights into the problem by doing this. You can consider the same problem magnified 10 times, or you could consider thinking of solutions of a problem if it was 10 times smaller. And the ideas that you get there could then be extrapolated for other powers. The why how laddering, and so, based on trying to look at the problem in many different ways, you can come up with many other design thinking methods. And each of these, the idea is basically the same: try to help you at each stage of design thinking, be it empathizing, be it ideating, be it prototyping. The base of these methods is just the same: to try to bring out your creative juices, try to start a group, try to stray away from groupthink, uh, and there are many more, and these keep getting invented. Moving on, this is about my journey and how I feel design thinking affects the world, affects me, affects my career, and how I plan to use it. Mm, Thinking about design thinking, so everything can be improved, be it a product, be it a process, everything can be improved, uh, and eventually will get improved. So design is everywhere, designing is everywhere. There is a need for design in everything, but if done well, if done from the start, if actively uh, designed using the design thinking process, everything can be made future proof, and we can avoid pain in the future. So there would be it would be a better aspect if everything was thought through beforehand and we applied design thinking everywhere. Ever since I've started on this journey, I've found examples of design thinking almost everywhere, and I'll talk about that. So I personally would like to be an entrepreneur, and I mean, every field has aspects of design thinking which are relevant to them. But I think it's a coincidence that design thinking and entrepreneurship really go hand in hand, because entrepreneurship has so much to do with the customer. You cannot be wrong. You have to really empathize with the customer, empathize with the problem statement, to be able to come out with something which is valuable. You need to keep testing and going back and testing and failing so that the process becomes better. An entrepreneur should be in love with the problems. And again, this is something that design thinking teaches you. Loving the problem is the only way to solve it. In this current day and age, there is more and more value being unlocked by innovation, and innovation is the only name of the game. And design thinking, I guess, is just a way to innovate faster. It makes life much easier if you have design thinking concepts in your head and you can innovate using them. So I guess to be an entrepreneur, I found design thinking so much useful. International business, again, diverse markets need empathy. You cannot have the same thinking that you grew up with to serve a customer which is so far away, so different, has grown up with so many different experiences than you. So diverse markets need empathy. In fact, any market needs empathy, even if it is a single market. But without design thinking, I don't think it would be very easy to empathize with others. Again, innovation in product and processes and marketing and revenue and data and every aspect of business, even finance. Design thinking can play a role. Innovation is everywhere, and so design thinking can be anywhere. Disruption, making and breaking everything every day is the name of the game. So I feel that as a student of international business, design thinking would play a very crucial part in my career forwards. Uh, I've started spotting design deficiencies everywhere ever since I've started thinking about design. And it's weird that things have existed around us for so long, and you may have not appreciated their design, or you may have never seen the problems in the design. Not just things, processes as well. How you apply to a college, how you order food, how you wear your clothes, how you do anything. I guess there is so much scope for improvement. We saw the example of airlines, and you would have complained, but you would have never thought of the possible solutions to that. So I think design thinking is beautiful in that regard, that any process can be improved, and there is so much that can come out of it. Uh, my capacity for empathy has just grown bounds. When you go and meet a service worker and they are having problems, rather than thinking that it's their fault, you start thinking why it's a problem. Why can't they do their job well? And then you look at the back end design of the work that they do, and you can clearly gain empathy for others. And it's again, problem solving comes into play there. Tolerance for absurdity and disruption. Some crazy ideas can come up, and you can see why they came up. And then once you see why the crazy idea came up, you can extrapolate that, either tone it down or take it forward, and bring out even better solutions with that. You can make things work if creative constraints are a thing. Again, design thinking has given me a mental factory for perspectives from all the design thinking tools that I just showed you, that I've just learned. You can generate perspectives and try to look at a problem in so many different ways that the problem at its core reveals itself to you. The problem becomes naked, and you can easily try and map it, try and apply all the fields where you specialize in. You can apply so many schools of thought to a problem and try to ideate a solution, try to prototype it in many different ways, test it. And again, design thinking is not natural design, it's evolution, because there is a concept of iteration inbuilt into it. So you test something, it goes back if it fails, and then you test it again. So in the end, whatever comes out has been tested and proven. So the solutions that come out of this are tend to be much more spot on, and for the better of the world. Thank you so much for listening. I hope design thinking motivates you, and I hope that design thinking takes me further in life. I'm sure it will, for me at least. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.